What's up, everybody? My name is Shannon and I am still waiting for my Satyr, and today we are talking about From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I want to start off by saying, of course, that this is an adult romance novel, so I normally review YA on this channel, so I just wanted you guys to be aware that the content level in this book is definitely mature. Now, I did go into this book thinking that it was going to be more of a fantasy novel than a romance novel, and I want to say that it tries to balance it, but it doesn't balance it super well. So first and foremost, this is a romance novel. You have been warned. Also, another warning, there are going to be spoilers in this video, mostly just because as I was thinking about my thoughts on this, really the best way for me to describe it is in a certain way that does kind of spoil the book. So you've also been warned with that as well, but with that, let's get into what this book is. If you are like me, you've probably been hearing about this book a lot. I feel like everywhere I go, I see mentions of it, and I think it's because of the way it was published. It just kind of sprang up out of nowhere. This author has written so many other books, but this one she got through and got out really quickly. A very thick boy. It's a very big book here, and we are also dealing with vampires, with romance. We have an amazing setup where our main character Poppy is this thing called the Maiden, so she's always veiled, she can't be touched, all this kind of stuff, and then she falls into this forbidden romance with her new guard, and just, yeah, the tropes speak for themselves, so I was pretty excited to get into this book. However, I wasn't enjoying it all that much. It was kind of slow to me, and it took me a while to pinpoint why that was, because I do like Poppy. I think she's a very interesting main character. I like that she wants more than anything to be able to make her own choices, because she lives this life where she's basically in a cage. She's basically this thing that people parade around, and she's been promised to the gods and is going to ascend and all this, and she doesn't know what that means. She doesn't know if she wants it. So at the beginning of this book, we find her really trying to lash out and find her own way and rebel. And I think that was reflected very well with just how Poppy thinks about things, the way that she talks to other characters. So I really did enjoy her. What I didn't enjoy as much was I think the world building definitely took a backseat. I have no idea what a maiden is still by the end of this book. I don't understand it. And I kind of get it knowing how the book ends, knowing the spoilers. I'm okay, that's what they want her for. But I'm having a hard time understanding what everybody else thinks she is. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And also just the history and the world building itself was very muddy. It was very vague, which I think is because this is a romance novel, but it made it a little bit hard to follow, and it also made it a little bit hard to kind of know who to root for. The other thing I didn't like about this book was Hawk, the love interest. I have seen so many people swooning over Hawk, even Sarah J. Maas, even Shelby Mahurin, everybody loves Hawk. He is very swoon-worthy. I wasn't super into him, and I think that's just my personal taste. He is definitely an Edward. This book, and this is where the spoilers come in, this book is literally Twilight, but way hornier. It's like Twilight if Edward knew what sex was, basically, is what this book is, because I saw the plot twist from a mile away. I knew that Hawk was going to turn out to be the Dark One, this dark prince who's rebelling against the monarchy and all this. I knew it was coming. He's a vampire. But even knowing this, every time I would observe his character, he just didn't feel like a real character. He just felt like a way for Poppy to rebel against this government that she's in, against the position that she's in. So I was hoping that the book was going to focus more on that, and for the plot to be a little bit more straightforward, and it just to be about her wanting to break out and this, that, and the other thing. Whereas really this was a vampire romance, and we get some interesting revelations about bloodlines towards the end of this book. The book kind of leaves off on an interesting cliffhanger, and I did enjoy their banter, but there's not a lot of tension for me. I feel like the way that this book opens was very strong. I really thought there was going to be smut within the first 50 pages, which is kind of a lot, but it opened very strong, and the tension was okay, but he disappears for a long time, and then nothing happens for 300 pages, and then suddenly so much is happening. So it just didn't really hold my attention very well. I stopped reading halfway through, and then when I got into the second half, I did skim a lot because there were a lot of battle scenes and badassery with Poppy that just kind of felt a little repetitive, and I, like I said, was kind of confused on the plot and where we were going, what we were doing, so I was just kind of wanting to get answers, and you do get them. The scene where you get them, I feel is very exposition heavy, and also vampire blood is an aphrodisiac, And also, like, the art of, like, being bitten, like, makes you super horny. So, like, the revelations come at the end. Poppy's, like, super angry, but then, like, she gets injured. So he gives her some of his blood, and it makes her, like, very horny just right off the bat. And I personally am not a fan of when the guy in the book is like, oh, well, you better tell me now, because once I start, I'll never be able to stop. I'm like, okay. But then he bites her later, and, like, the same thing happens, and they just start going at it in the woods when they were arguing, like, 2 pages before. And it wasn't for me, but I do see why some people like this book. Personally, I'm probably not going to read the sequel. I might if I can get my hands on an audiobook, just because it's bigger, and I have seen that it does get a little bit fluffier, which just isn't really for me. I'm giving this book a C-. I think that there are definitely some good things in it, but I was lured to this book because of, like, the tropes, the enemies to lovers aspect, and it just didn't really come out. I wouldn't call this book an enemies to lovers, just like I wouldn't call Twilight an enemies to lovers, but I definitely do see the appeal of it. So I'm giving this book a C-. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but if romance is up your alley, or if you just really want some very hot medieval Twilight fan fiction, this is definitely the book for you. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe so you can talk books with me every week. That is everything I got for today, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.